Look at these pawns. You don't see that every day.
That is absolutely stunning, just this position. It's one of those you take a screenshot of and then dream about for the next week.
That is Robert Hess and Tania Sachdev predicting what is about to happen in this game, and then it does happen. So wait till you see how they react when it actually comes on the board. Now this was a mouth-watering encounter. We had Gukesh playing with white against Pragg. It's the final day of the Rapid Chess in the Tata Steel, India Rapid and Blitz. And these guys were up for a fight, right? So Gukesh here kicks off with d4 in their first ever rapid encounter over the board, if you can believe that. So we get a queen's pawn game, and now e3. I love how the players are searching for these quirky systems in this tournament, and what a fight we now get. So Pragg, he plays the queen's gambit setup, but with the black colours here. Gukesh accepts the pawn. e6, prepares to win it back, and now look at this, b4. Hang on a second, can't black just go a5, undermine this whole structure? Yes, you can support the pawn, fine, but then b6. If you take here, well, I'm recapturing with check, good game. Well, here's white's whole point. You get bishop b5 check, this one blocks, these come off the board, and now a4 played. So yes, you give the pawn back, but now you go b5. And you do see this with colours reversed as well. It's known as the Noteboom system, named after Daniel Noteboom, a Dutch player, and you get such fascinating battles because one side has got two passed pawns running down the flank, hugely dangerous in endgames, but the other side has this big control of the centre which can get easily dangerous. So watch how the battle unfolds. Castle's now played, queen c7. This whole theme of black defending the dark squares is a big one because you want to keep these pawns blockaded. We get bishop b2, and already a fascinating moment shows the dynamism of the position. So you can go g5 here as black and start attacking like that. If knight takes, then this battery wins this pawn. Whole different game, right? But Pragg goes e5, very principled, sets up the huge centre, and e4 is a threat, drive away the knight, and then pick up this pawn with check. So the knight preempts that move, already retreats, and e4 is played anyway. Important idea because you don't want to let white go e4 in the right circumstances anyway, mess up these pawns somehow and gain access to the c4 square for a knight. So f4 now played, again a fascinating move. You could have gone h3, but here Gukesh offers a pawn structure change. So if this one is captured, well, the knight hops back, and even though this pawn is weak, white gets counterplay against this one. Really fascinating position, but we didn't go down that route. Instead, Pragg castles his king, and now knight c3. Looks like you're walking into these pawns, about to get steamrolled, but if black does it immediately, then this one's now weak, and you're just in time to take here. You know, black can take here, but now you're opening the bishop, and you're just getting screwed, basically. So what we see instead is rook fe8, supporting this pawn, now preparing d4. So what does Gukesh do? Rook fe1, now prepared to meet d4 with pressure against this pawn. But what does Pragg do? He plays it anyway. You know, it wasn't forced. He could have gone c4, for example, bring the knight to c5 and d3. But in doing so, you weaken the d4 square. Such a rich strategic position. But d4 on the board, we get captures, and now what's here the big idea from Pragg? Well, we're gonna see it, but what he should have played is actually a different move. So his best move here is bishop takes on f4, for the reason being that you actually get through to this white king. You know, if you try and defend with g3, black can actually smash a bishop sack there, bring the queen in, very dangerous. Other good moves too. So that isn't the way to go. If h3, you're weakening the dark squares. So white's best here is recapturing this pawn, leaving this one to drop with check. The computer gives it roughly equal, right? But you know, anything can happen in these positions. Very wild. So taking here best. but Pragg goes e3. Shades of his immortal game played in the World Cup recently. I'll link that one in the end in case you haven't seen it. I mean, an absolute treat of a game where a pawn lands on e3. But here it's not as precise because it gives up the f3 square, and now when the pawn drops, well, this one's already defended. It gives Gukesh a move and he uses it wisely, because if you push on with this pawn or capture here, then actually there's a problem in that knight g4 comes and the dark squares are getting really sensitive around the black king. Pragg's pieces are flowing. So what Gukesh does is knight e2. Hitting this important attacking bishop could also be an important defensive piece, and so you don't want to let it drop. Go knight g4, it retreats back, and now after d takes on c5, Gukesh is just trying to wrestle for the initiative himself. Now you'd love to take with the knight, keep the bishop on this diagonal, but then white can take here, smash up the pawn structure, start attacking black. So bishop takes is played, and now bishop d4. Excellent play by Gukesh. You know, if you trade down pieces, these pawns get super dangerous. So queen b6 from Pragg, good move, reinforcing that dark squared control. And now this is such a classy move from Gukesh. He doesn't take any action to make trades. He plays the queen into d3, just asking Pragg, do you want to hang yourself? Because when you run it with the engine, you know, the top moves are just waiting moves here. h6, g6, that kind of thing. If you try and go active, knight e4 looks great, you know, supported by the rook springing in. Well, then there's even things like this going on. Bishop takes, king takes, queen takes here. Loose pieces drop off, as they say. You know, all sorts of stuff going on. So this one's classy. Pragg decides to take in response. Queen captures. Why do we not see queen takes here? Well, the moment you enter this endgame, you're doomed. Those pawns are deadly. So queen a5 played. Looking down here, blockading pawns. Knight g3 now played. Excellent move. Opening the rook on this one and showing it for what it is now, which is a weakness more than an asset. Also, the knight looks at f5. So knight b6 played. Here Pragg goes for counterplay, getting more down on time now as well. And if you take the pawn, is the computer's top line? Well, Pragg's hoping to break up these dangerous passed pawns. Still white is better after queen b3. I mean, this is a self-pin here, but you can't immediately take advantage. Knight d7 is coming, spinning around, but white's better. But Gukesh didn't win the pawn. He goes for knight f5 instead, and I love this, especially on low time. Such a tricky move to face, because now if you take, there's queen f4 or queen h4. You can switch into the attack. Look at this pawn if you threaten mate. If g6, the knight drops, etc., you know, in a move's time. Plus there's knight d6. Just awful. So Pragg plays the best move. He centralises that knight, supporting its brother, but now knight d6. I mean, the flow and the harmony of Gukesh's pieces. That one's gone c3, e2, g3, f5, d6. I mean, what a circuit, what a hero in the position. So rook e6 is played. Great play by Pragg again. He doesn't go passive on the back rank. This is the top move. Now the knight comes back to c4, one square in front of where it started its journey. The queen is hit. Now technically best is queen c7, but who cares about technicalities? Queen b4 looks so logical, but it allows Gukesh to bring the second rook with tempo. The queen goes, and now look at these cannons behind the pawns progressing down the board. Again, this is a mistake, but why is it a mistake? Not obvious. You know, queen f8 is best when you run it with an engine. Why? Knight g5 traps the rook. It's caught in a trap. It's got no squares. Insane. But of course, Gukesh, he's focused on these pawns. So he pushes b6, still a good move, and now e2 had to be played by Pragg. This was his top activity move. But he goes rook e4, and now Gukesh, I mean, this guy is headed for top 3 in the world, right? The way he sees the board. So the queen is attacked, surely has to move and everything. You know, if queen d3, there's queen c5. Black's doing great again. You're attacking the knight, there could be nasty threats with check. The pawn's a bit pressured, you know. So what we see there would be some, small advantage to Pragg. But what we see in the game is not the queen moving, but pawn b7. I mean, look at this one. If you take my queen, I'm going to attack your rook, all done on low time. So the rook has to defend itself. It's the best move. And now queen a7. Invasion. The rook is hit. Okay, once again, let's go for technicalities. Technically best is knight d7 to leave the queen in an attacking position on the king's side, but queen c7 was played. Very understandable. Holds this rook. That's why the knight wasn't yet captured. But now there is a threat of rook takes knight. What to do? Well, the computer's top move is knight c to e5. Very tactical once again. But what Pragg plays, Gukesh, keep mixing up names. He plays the move for the fans, right? And now watch here how Robert and Tania react when he plays this move.
Board, he
Ooh,
does
it. He does it. A5 on the board, Robert. He's going for it. He's leaving his knight hanging and banking all the hopes on those 2 pawns. And a queen sacrifice. We might be seeing that happen.
Now this is a very exciting move, because if rook takes here, then a6 comes, and what are you doing about this slow motion threat of rook takes and progressing with the pawns? And there's just nothing you can do. You know, if knight d7, you can immediately take, knight takes, queen takes, doesn't matter, the pawns are running. Now wait till you see what happens when we get to actually the final position of the pawns, because then we get the starting reaction from Robert and Tania. So rook e8 is played from Pragg, defending that back rank. Now we get a6, the pawn's progressing. Knight c3, Pragg desperate for counterplay. Now rook b4 is played here. You could even sack this queen already. But rook b4 is played. Pragg now goes h6 to give the king some room. By the way, the computer preferred e2 again there, but okay, h6. And now this is where Gukesh, don't ask me twice, I'm going to play it. Bang, he gives the queen. The rook recaptures and a7 on the board. And now this was the position that the guys predicted in this clip here when they were looking at it from afar.
Beautiful.
Look at these pawns. You don't see that every day.
That is absolutely stunning. Just this position. It's one of those you take a screenshot of and then dream about for the next week.
So cool to see it on the board. So knight d7 is played. You know what to do, trying to give some defense. But a8 queen, and it doesn't matter what you did in that move before. Knight d7 played. Have a look at the tactics. Even if you take here, you're queening. You cannot stop 2 pawns like this. So we see knight d5 back, hitting the rook, but it's desperation from Pragg. If you do a material count here, white is an entire rook up. You can play what you like. So the rook comes to a4. Now we see the pawn progressing. Still you can't take, of course. A new baby girl is made. So we see queen a5 instead. Coming back, covering e1, offering a queen exchange. Pragg doesn't go for it. He picks up the pawn, but now queen d2. Clinical stuff, just rounding up this pawn. Sure, you can go rook e8, but even just rook e1 does the job. You're going to soon pick up the pawn. Black's not long for this world. So we see knight c5, the rook is hit, it invades, attacks the queen moves away, this queen now picks up the pawn, and after knight e6, this knight jumps into e5, hits the queen, hits f7 with the rook, the queen comes to c3, one last trick, you know, say white takes with the rook, what are you going to take with check and things, but of course Gukesh is too good. He goes rook e8, a8, he's about to swap off the rooks. Pragg throws in the towel. He's an entire rook down against one of the world's most elite players. I hope you enjoyed this incredible game, the first rapid between these 2 guys. And if you want to see Pragg's immortal game played at the recent World Cup, then do check out the video on screen. Thanks very much for watching and see you soon.